know, or like you would write something, creative things that you would put out, but then they would say, no, we don't want to publish that.
I'm amazed at how little flack I've gotten. I actually said to a reporter last year, the year before, that I'm waiting for someone to, for lack of an easier way to say, to call me on my shit, you know, and say, you're full of it. What do you mean there's past lives? What do you mean you can tune into Jesus and the Holy Spirit? That's blasphemy.
Yeah.
That's blasphemy, or to call me, you know, to get incensed. And I told this reporter that I would welcome that opportunity, because that means you're calling forth something in that person that is a passion for them, or that they need to look at or to work through in their life. So, no, I really haven't had much of a battle with people, and I'm amazed at that, because I talk about some pretty meta-phenomenal concepts in my book, which is called Everything Matters, Nothing Matters, by the way. And
great book.
Yeah, check it out. EverythingMattersNothingMatters.com. And yeah, it's been, I mean, that might still happen. I would say that the most flack I've gotten is from my own family.
Right.
Yeah.
So as part of the spiritual journey, it's been kind of a hard thing to, would it have been hard for you, like with your family? Is that the hardest part, as you're evolving and you're more aware of things and maybe more open to how they perceive the world? There creates a conflict. But I mean, you are able to like stand back and watch it, but do you ever get sucked into the battles? Or?
Less and less, but absolutely I have. And it's pretty intense when it's with people very close to you, who claim to love you unconditionally and who claim to know you. And it's interesting because my writing has evolved from a very deep, sincere, honest, spiritual place. And when I'm in the creative process, I'm only concerned with truth telling. I'm only concerned with getting it right on the page. And I stay in that space until some point in time when the work is published and people are reading it. I'm not really thinking too much about people's reactions to it. Maybe during the editing process, when I'm working with my editors and people who I'm writing for publications and so forth, we're fact-checking and we're concerned about making sure that no one is harmed in any way. And of course, I don't know why anybody would be, because it's not like I'm ever saying anything negative. But in telling the truth as I perceive it, I do observe and I do understand that not everybody shares that perspective. Of course they don't, because they're seeing the world through their lens and not mine, and as it should be.
Yeah.
But those conflicts come up, and again, they call forth something in ourselves, including me, that needs to be looked at more deeply to be healed. And I would say for me, obviously as an author and as a journalist, it's about, as long as I know I'm in my integrity and I'm telling the truth, that I shouldn't concern myself too much with what other people's reactions are going to be. It's like that saying, what you think of me is none of my business, you know? Because if you worried too much about that, then I would be stymied. I would have a creative flow, and I would probably stop doing this work altogether. I'd probably serve ice cream with Dairy Queen, do something less threatening.
Right.
Yeah.
So part of the reason that I'm taking this trip is because I wanted to demonstrate the actual creative process, like of setting the intention and then really reaching out, stretching, and putting yourself in places that are very uncomfortable, that brings out that you're faced with the truth, and it helps you to like sort of look at it from another perspective, and enables you to grow if that's the direction you wanted to go to. So in the case of you, Gina, how would you describe your creative process? step by step do you do to enable like source and spirit to like come through into your work?
Right, I do talk about that in the book. I talked about, first of all, how it all begins with intention. You have to have the right intention for whatever it is you're wanting to create. And we're all creative beings, by the way. Everyone has the ability to create. Just some people work on it more than others. But I think if we're clear on what we're going for, then it's easier to bring it to fruition. Even if it's something really simple, like I want to be able to journal every morning for 15 minutes. I want to get my thoughts out. I want to be able to clear my mind by journaling. It doesn't have to be high creativity. It can be something really simple. It's just for you. But my process is very much related to meditation because I think meditation is the quickest and surest way to open up what I call that PVC pipe, which is the creative channel. I call it channel 1, because I'm tuning into spirit, and to me it feels very much like creativity and higher consciousness are one and the same thing. So they're funneling through that same channel, and that's a big part of how my spirituality opened up for me, because I was wanting to be better at creating, better at being a writer. And I do other creative things too. I'm a dancer and do other things. So in my quest to pull down information for content, I started pulling down all kinds of information that had nothing to do with what I ended up with on the page. It had to do with realizing that there is an infinite source that we can draw for our creativity. It's boundless. And meditation is the quickest way to get to that point, because when that channel is clear, you realize that there's no such thing as writer's block or being stuck or being fearful about copyright infringement or anything like that. It's just all pure, it's joy. For me, anyway.
How would you describe, like, when you're actually in that process? Are you in awe of what's happening, like what's coming through?
There have been times when I've just been blown away, and I highly recommend, again, it's a form of meditation. I would do what I call automatic writing. That's just the term that's used for it, but it's stream of consciousness writing. When I was in a meditative state, I would sit down at my laptop and just start channeling information. And I knew it wasn't me doing the writing. It was highly intelligent, highly wise messages that were coming through. And I learned so much through that process. And when I step back and read those materials, even now, oh my God, this is really amazing, because someone had a hand in helping me to do that. And some of the material has ended up in my writings, and in some cases I give attribution to the source that I feel that it came from. And in other cases it's just assimilated into my own writing, become part of me, part of my message.
And so, whether it's writing or anything in life, it's just the same thing, right? In essence, like, let's say you're dancing,
right.
You get in that state,
right.
You're almost like observing yourself doing it, but you can't really take credit.
Right, dancing is slightly different because you learn. To me, it's like playing music and doing something that's more of a trained skill, which is meditation is a practice too. That's why they call it a practice, because you have to practice at it in order to get more refined with your meditation. But dancing is something that involves the body more, of course. So you have to go through the training of the body, and then you have to learn the choreography. You have to learn the technique, and like anyone who's been doing something for a period of time, you reach a point where you transcend that. I think it was Balanchine that said technique is something that you fall back on when you're not a very good creative person. He made a comment about that, about how when